to order at, I think it's 5:02. I can't see the clock. Is that okay? Thank you, Linda. And that is Linda down there, not her Jane. You weren't the only person I called by the wrong name that day. I apologize. If you have an agenda, obviously there's extra ones up here, and if you have your nameplate, that is also helpful for people watching and people who want to address talking with you. Anyway, Nicole, you let me know when you want to chime in, okay?
I will, and there's just a question about the executive session. I'm not sure if you have a chance to touch base with Judd.
So, go ahead. She indicated that we probably won't have to have one.
Okay.
Okay. And that goes for everybody else, by the way, that when Nicole first came on, she indicated we probably won't need the executive session. She currently has the flu and she's not sharing. Hi, Liz. And Liz, if you would sit over next to Linda, she will give you
Linda,
all
you
the
want her to sign in
paperwork
too?
and things that she needs you to do.
Thank you so much. I apologize.
Thank you. So we have a new board member joining us today, and she came in with a grand entrance. She is from Mount Abe, a veteran member over there, and thankfully stepped up to join this group. But very happy to have you. And Linda's going to make her officially. So, David, I'm going to start with you, if you wouldn't mind, just who you are and what you're doing, and we'll chat with us later.
Sure. My name is David Roberts. I am the Director of Operations here at the Career Center. And Austin and I are teaming up all the things behind the scenes.
Thank you. Go.
I'm Jillian Zieger. I'm the Curriculum Director here at the Career Center.
Thank you.
I'm Craig Wolosinski. I'm the new, hopefully approved teaching assistant up at the North Campus in the automotive program.
Welcome.
Austin Haynes. I am David's other half in the business office.
Dan Rosignol, Addison Northwest at large.
Christina Macklin, I'm Addison Northwest School District Representative.
John Markowski, resident of Bridport and Workforce Investment Board member.
Stu Parks, resident of Middlebury, at large, I think.
We know that. But thank you. Kim Farm, Chairman of the Board. I'm the Community at Large member from the Mount Abraham School District.
Michael Giorgio, ACSD.
Trisha Allen, ACSD.
Steve Warzak, ACSD, resident of Middlebury and West.
Go ahead, Liz, introduce yourself.
Liz Sarah from Bristol. I'm a USD board member.
Yeah.
And I'm Nicole McTavish, the Superintendent and Director. And I have a bad flu, and I didn't want to give it to everybody, so I am remote today. And we have Craig here. We didn't have his paperwork in time to warn it, but we did want to introduce him. So you will see his resume on the next board agenda, but we did want to take the opportunity to welcome him aboard.
Woohoo! So I need a motion to approve this agenda in front of us. Oh, sorry.
Hugh McLaughlin, I'm here for just before the executive session public comment. I'd like to speak about the FFA and how critical it is to the mission of the Hannaford Career Center.
Thank you, Hugh. Thank you. So again, I need a motion to approve this agenda.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor that are eligible to vote, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. And I don't see anybody not approving it, but anyway. Motion to approve the November 21st meeting minutes.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Christine. And a second?
Sure, second, Judd.
Judd Markowski. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Any public comment regarding the agenda in front of you? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any questions about any of these items here? I don't know if you want to address the figures. I mean, we've done that in the past, and Nick is not here to make sure that we do that, but is there
Yeah, I'm happy
something-
to, would you like me to read them out, or I'll follow your lead, Kim?
I think it might be a good thing for
Sure.
public comment, especially since the meeting is being recorded. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so to summarize November's activity for the general fund, we had $96,491.08 in accounts payable checks. For payroll from the general fund, we had $145,054.26. From our adult education fund, we had $65.92 in AP checks. In our enterprise account, there were a total of $7,164.89 in AP checks. For student activities, we had $3,464.91. No checks were cut from the scholarship fund or the building and equipment reserve fund. And same goes for the energy project bond. That's it for November's activities. We do have some recent highlights, which we can discuss at next board meeting. So recently, last week and this past week, we received a number of checks from the state and their sending schools. So David and I are happy to report we are in a cash positive position with our line of credit, and we're able to start paying down the balance of the loan that we borrowed out the past few weeks. So that feels good. We've been able to catch up on a number of outstanding accounts payable bills in this most recent check run to the tune of several $100,000. And we just made our final payment on the energy, or the final drawdown from our bond and payment to EEI for that project. So that summarizes November and recent activity.
Any questions, anybody? Steve?
You said you're catching up with the accounts payable. How much more do you have to go? I'm assuming we're out of the place where we would incur late fees and that sort of thing. I'm trying to get a sense of how much more of your time and energy is going to be dedicated to cleaning up the situation.
I think I'll defer to David as far as getting a sense of what is remaining still. We've been chasing a lot in the past few weeks with bills that were over 90 days overdue, and I think we've made a lot of good progress on that. So David, do you have any high-level commentary there?
Yeah, as of today, thank you board members who've come to sign checks and direct orders. We've paid pretty much every bill that we owed that was over 2 weeks old, as well as the construction projects final bill, where we're just about to release that check to them. So we're in a really good shape. We are holding off on paying off the line of credits for a few weeks because we just want to be careful about cash flow, and we just need to take a deeper dive in that. But in general, we are in great shape, and everybody's caught up.
Any other questions? I have one. The $8 million bond piece and everything, nothing outstanding, everything's been done on the old checklist and so on, as far as your...
Yes.
Okay.
We're still, to be fair, we're crossing off a few I's and dotting a few I's and crossing out some T's.
Mhm.
But we wanted to get the check cut in
Right.
this year, and we're hoping to
Okay.
get that check out before the end of the year, because they really want it.
Questions? Anybody else? Thank you for that. It's a consent agenda, so I need a motion to accept the information that was just provided to you.
So moved, Chuck.
Second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Dan. All those in favor, again, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next, these are action items, and we'll take them one at a time. The first one is Liz appointed as, Liz here is the MAUSD board representative. Liz, just give you a couple of minutes. You want to talk about how many years you've been on the board and all that other stuff.
Yep, yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, so I joined Mount Avery at MAUSD right after they merged. So I had participated on the Bristol School Board for about a year, overlapping with the MAUSD School Board, so I've been part of it since the merger. And I've explored all of the issues that have come before our board and our community since then. And I look forward to learning more about the relationship between our district and the Career Center, and also our districts among each other. I think that's one of the things I'm excited about with this board is that it's for Jens, Mount Ave, and Middlebury working together here, and the community and the workforce and how much goes on in the school building. So looking forward to learning more. Thank you for having me.
Do you also have somebody in your family who is attending?
Yes, that's right. My son is here. He attended during high school, but we did 1 year of the program his senior year so that he could be sure and get what he needed in order to graduate on time. And now he's here as an adult learner taking one of the day programs, fabrication and technology. And the Department of Labor and Hireability is helping us with that process. And it's really exciting, just for me, just so personally. The teacher of that course is also, to the best of my knowledge, a CCD teacher. And so that's really guiding us right into maybe doing some more with CCD after he's working here. So, and then my partner, Mark Deering, he attended the automotive program here, and he's now one of the owners of Auto Creek in Virgins, and he went to UTI after coming here, and this was a very successful path for him, and so our family greatly appreciates the work that happens in this building.
Thanks, Liz. And Liz, how many years have you been on Mount Abe board now?
I can't even.
I know, we lose track.
2017, 2018, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, your timeline sounds like about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, yeah.
What year did Mark graduate?
It was 2003.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
And we also have to accept the resignation of Zachary Piper, the automotive tech assistant, and that's effective as of this Friday. Is that correct, Nicole?
It is, and this is actually a great news story. So before COVID, Zach had been studying to be a teacher, but then COVID happened and it interrupted his pathway. And so he's actually leaving us to go do student teaching and become a teacher.
Oh.
So although we're very sad to lose him, we are very excited for him to go into the teaching profession.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I have to accept both those, and I'm going to do them together, if people don't mind. So I need a motion to do that. Steve Orzik?
I move that we accept the appointment of Liz Sayer as the Mount Abe board representative and accept the resignation of Zach Piper as automotive teaching assistant.
Thank you, Steve. A second? You got
Second.
that? Judd? Gotcha.
Oh, and
All right.
Steve and I fought for it there.
You guys are a little quiet over here. All those in favor, either raise your hand or say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, and welcome, Liz.
Liz, you get an ornament since you were accepted.
So when you go back to Mount Abe, you say, they give out gifts.
Holiday gift.
And it wasn't to bribe you to get on, it was after you got on. Anyway,
And we certainly don't get fed at our other meetings.
did we get,
No.
Thank
Yeah, I was
you.
gonna say.
Yeah, there's great food, so
Sounds like it fed.
help yourself.
so Liz, you're all set with Linda now. Oh, you were sworn in and legal and all that kind of stuff. All right, thank you.
She signed her thing at that time.
I think Linda, you swore her in, right? She does personal service, so that way she's good. Anyway, but thank you, Linda, for doing that. Make our journeys easier. So the next conversation we have is regarding the Tricia A. Hannaford Center video. Is this for your roadshow? Nicole? We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, this is actually a promotional video that Lauren Detmia, who's been working with all our social media and helping us out with a lot of the posters and publications we've been doing, she made this video. I'm just thrilled about it. And we're using it as our part of our outreach to our city and school districts. And we wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to see it.
Thank you.
So we can play that now.
You see it? Yeah. She gave us this link.
We are more than just a school.
Yeah.
We're a community where
You do now.
students turn passion into professional skills.
Little louder.
Yeah, is there a volume?
I can't turn it up on
A
volume.
wide range of technical programs that give students the skills and certifications needed to enter the workforce or continue their education. Become a theater performer or technician with Addison Repertory Theater, ART, and Vermont's only CTE theater program. You'll learn stagecraft, lighting design, set construction, and performance skills. Whether you see yourself on stage or behind the scenes, ART provides the training and experience you need for success in theater, film, and live events. Gain real-world experience in our automotive technology program, where you'll learn the ins and outs of auto repair through hands-on training and classroom instruction on systems like engines and electrical components. In construction technology, you build your future. You'll develop essential skills in safety, blueprint reading, and tool use, while learning carpentry, plumbing, and electrical systems, and completing real-world construction projects. Ignite your passion in the culinary arts program. You'll work in a commercial kitchen at our Glass Onion Theater, mastering cooking skills and kitchen management in a bona fide restaurant setting. Explore your creativity in our design and illustration program, where you'll create a professional portfolio using traditional and digital techniques, preparing you for careers in graphic design and the arts. Become a diesel technician in our Diesel Power Technology program, where you'll learn about diesel systems and gain hands-on experience in a live, state-of-the-art repair shop. Prepare for a rewarding career in education, healthcare, or social services with our Human Services program. You will focus on human development and gain practical experience in our own childcare lab and with our many community partners. Unlock your future in high-tech manufacturing with our industrial design and fabrication. You will learn CNC programming, CAD design, hands-on machining skills, and more. Our medical professions program equips you with essential knowledge in medical terminology and human biology, leading to certification as a licensed nursing assistant. Doors will open for you to further education and careers in nursing, radiology, respiratory therapy, and more. Become a steward of the environment in our natural resource management program, where you'll learn about wildlife conservation and forest science. You will prepare to take on careers in post-secondary training to keep our forest ecosystems in power. Explore agricultural entrepreneurship in our Sustainable Agriculture program, where you'll study livestock production and gain hands-on experience at the Pack Deep Roots Student Farm. You will learn all aspects of running a Northeast farm, including managing soil nutrients, greenhouses, pastures, and more. In our welding program, you'll gain practical skills in metallurgy and metal fabrication, preparing you for a lucrative career in a variety of industries as a certified welder. From crafting practical structures to creating artistic projects, you'll gain proficiency in welding, cutting, and shaping methods. For our 9th and 10th graders, our pre-tech programs are designed to give students an early taste of what career pathways might interest them, helping them explore their passion and build foundational skills. Explore the world of agriculture in our Introduction to Agricultural Sciences program. You'll work hands-on at our Deep Roots Farm and HCC Sugarworks, learning about food production, livestock management, forestry, and soil conservation to build practical skills and a solid foundation in land management.
Jumpstart your tech skills with Introduction to STEM. Program autonomous drones, design with CAD, and use 3D printers and CNC machines. Preparing yourself for exciting fields in science, technology, engineering, and math. Mechanical Science introduces you to engines, machinery, and welding. Gain certification in tractor operation, rebuild engine, and learn welding techniques. Skills that prepare you for advanced mechanical studies and a strong technical foundation. Discover your creative side in visual communications. You'll dive into graphic design using tools like Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. Work on real-world projects from designing apparel to creating marketing materials as you explore potential careers in media art. At PEG, we're committed to guiding students toward bright futures through engaging, hands-on learning experiences. Join us at a school where opportunity, innovation, and community come together to shape the leaders of tomorrow. It could be you.
Excellent.
Very good indeed.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any questions, comments? We leave something out?
Is it?
Where are you gonna make, oh,
Nicole, do you want to speak to where this is going to be used or so on?
Yeah, so we're using it, we've sent it to, for the 10th grade visitations, we sent the video ahead, excuse me, to each of the high schools, and they showed this video to all the 10th graders, and then the 10th graders chose classes that they wanted to come visit for their 10th grade visitation. And so the 10th graders then came over, we had our last one today, Middlebury came today, and the students visited between 3 and 5 courses. And hopefully from that we will get students interested to take the courses. We're also using this for our future 9th grade students when we do those, and we will also use them in when we do public presentations, like when we go to Rotary or when we go to businesses or community partners, we use this video. So we're thrilled about it, and we're actually really excited that Lauren was able to do it in-house. It saved us quite a lot of money, and I think it looks really professional and very up-to-date. We used, obviously, those pictures are from Caleb Kenna, who is, you probably see him on Facebook, who takes just the gorgeous pictures of Vermont, and has partnered with us to create these photo shoots for us to use for publicity.
Well, kudos to Lauren, too, for updating the social media pieces that the school desperately needed to have done. But anyway, she's done a great job with those. Any questions? Steve?
will this be available on the website so we can send people to it to have a look at it? Because it's really good.
Yeah, it's on there now.
Oh, it is, okay.
Dan?
Yeah, I think it's really well done. Is there also something in writing that the kids, the 9th graders, 10th graders know what'll be available for them so they could cue in during the presentation? Because there is a lot of stuff there. We went through everything from food to, diesel.
Yeah, so each of the programs has a poster that has sort of the main points on it. And then the course description guides that the high schools themselves hand out, they put our course description into each of the sending schools' course guides as well.
Okay, good, okay, because there was a lot there.
David, it looks like Sharon Meacham's trying to get in, but she said the Zoom link isn't working.
She made it. I'm here now.
Whoa, sorry.
Looks like I'm trying to let Bill in.
Oh, and Bill, yeah, Bill may be trying to get in. Welcome. And Sharon is our, for Liz's sake, Sharon's our representative from Porter Hospital. We have for our community engagement piece.
So Bill is on, there he is.
There he is. Hi, Bill.
Hey folks, sorry, I've been having troubles getting in with the code I had.
Well, welcome. Nicole, do you want to add anything else to the conversation about the video that we just watched?
I don't think anything else. We, like I said, we
using it extensively for promotion, and I'm sure you'll see it at open houses. And for those of you who come to the Celebration of Learning, I'm sure we will show it there as well. And the awards breakfasts, probably will show it there too.
So for Sharon and Bill, if you go to the website, you should be able to watch the video that we just saw regarding all of the programs and the video is shown in a variety of locations, including prior to the visit of the 9th and the 10th graders, which Nicole indicated they just finished their last visit with Middlebury today. So.
Is that the one that has the link in
Yeah,
the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I watched it last night, it was great, good work for everybody there.
Thanks, Sharon, for that input.
Baby goats. Baby goats are always a big seller.
Any other questions, Dan?
Baby goats.
Any other questions? Okay. The next item on the agenda is board elections. If you are in a position where you have to be elected back to this board, or you are running for a term from your sending school, please be mindful of what you have to do. Every town's different a little bit, how many signatures you might have to collect, or whatever it is that are involved in that. But I don't know if anybody's up. Tim?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was just going to ask that. Actually, is there a list of who's up for re-election this year?
So
I can't remember if I am or not.
So depending on how your involvement is with the board, in my case, I try and approach Mount Airy every year and let them know I'm interested in doing it as a community at large member. So that would be up to you to go back to your sending institution and ask them for that. If you are voted on in a ballot situation with your sending school, Steve, are you up for re-election this year?
Yes, I'm up for re-election in March.
Are you going to run again, do you think?
Who would we find out that from?
You're not, it would be like if you were on the board, so I'm not being elected to this board, I'm being elected to my sending board. If I lose that election, I can't serve on this board.
Right.
So that's the situation there. But I believe you're appointed, so you're a community at-large member, the board appoints you, you don't have to run for election.
But I ran for election to get on here the first time. Was
Well,
that?
well,
It's different.
You showed up at town meeting and said, right, and chose to be appointed. That wasn't an election.
Oh.
That was an appointment. And everybody at the meeting appointed you. But we're talking about like on town meeting day, we are on the ballot. And I think that's what you're talking about, Kim.
That's one of the things.
Yeah.
So who would I ensure that I'm doing the right thing with?
Well, then when the board reorganizes, they make their appointments. So that's after the March election, people get reappointed.
I would make
Yeah.
an effort to talk to your,
Reach out to Barb as the
Yeah.
chair of the ACSD
Okay.
committee.
and
There
she
you go,
will,
that's
and
what
she
I
will
was-
indicate, for
I got
instance,
it,
how
yeah.
long your term is.
Yep, cool.
It may be a lengthy term. I'm not sure how
I got
Jens
it.
does that.
I was just wondering who that person was. I got it.
Yeah, Barb.
I think I get reappointed every year.
Okay, so
when they reorganize.
you're a sending school reappointment, you're the community at large member, and you need to find out, for instance, how often that happens.
I think it was 3 years.
It was a 3 year.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You're all set then, probably? Are you in your second, third year?
My second year.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions about that?
Bill's
Bill.
Go ahead, Bill.
Who would I find out about Middlebury?
Well, WIB is a little bit different because you're representative of the business community. So actually, your name is sent to us and you're on forever. You can't leave unless you choose to.
They're not termed as the WIB member?
I don't believe so.
I mean, because I know
I
that
don't
when
know.
I took over, it was originally for a 3-year thing, and then I took over for somebody else. I don't know that I've ever actually pursued it.
So are you a WIB member
So I'm
or
a
a
WIB
community
member.
at large?
But I've only taken over, so I actually have lost track of when my term
is.
actually ends.
And I don't know if we have that information, Nicole.
In it forever.
As I recall, when we were talking about board representation, the old system doesn't exist anymore. WIB used to have a board that met, which I don't believe happens. And so appointment to WIB positions was taken on by the board, I believe, because I don't.
Nicole, do you want to speak to that? we researched that, go ahead.
Yes, you've got,
Shannon has sent out, there's a document that you all got that has your names and your addresses and your phone numbers, and it also has your terms on it. So I can have her resend that out, so you have that. I don't have it at my fingertips, but that lists your terms. And when the board, as Steve-O was saying, when the board reconstitutes after the elections, then the board can decide to change the WIB, whatever we're calling it now, the workplace representation, or the board can decide to keep the same people. Traditionally, they've kind of kept the same people.
but the board can decide that once everybody's elected again.
Or if you so, choose to get off too. Just, it's an awareness of letting us know so that we can get somebody else to fill that position if you're not interested anymore in serving. Anything else you want to add to that, or any other questions from anybody? Did that answer your question, Bill?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Okay.
And, I'm gonna check with Fred anyway. I think Fred said that he had talked with somebody else and you guys had asked him for a recommendation. And that's how I got on, but I'm gonna ask him if he has any rules about that on his end from development.
Thank you. Thank you. So, January 9th is just a reminder that due to the timing of Nicole's visits and are making a decision on what the budget's gonna be here for this institution, we needed to move the date up from our regularly scheduled meeting. So the 9th was gonna be that day, which it still is. And that's why it's on there. We may later on in an action item cancel that 16th meeting. At this point, I'm not sure, how that, if there's a need for it, especially if we have one the week before. But anyway, that's why that's on there. Any questions about that?
Yeah.
Steve, go ahead.
Oh, so you're listing it here as a special board meeting, but it is in fact our January board meeting.
Could be.
Is that?
Well, that's what I'm saying, it could be. We haven't decided yet, and it's, yes.
Yeah, and,
Yes,
okay,
thank you.
because that's the decision on this is influenced by the decision on the 16th, I believe. So if we're just gonna talk about budget on the 9th, that's special board.
Right.
We're gonna do everything else on the 9th.
Right, we
That's a
haven't
regular.
decided that yet, but you're right. It's just to put that date in your calendar, just so you're aware of it. Nicole, do you want to add anything to that? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yes, so that January 9th board meeting is critical.
Critical that everybody attends. This is the vote that you do to approve our budget so that I can then take it forward into the wild. Because that will be what I, excuse me, that's what I will talk to all of the sending school districts about, and that will set our tuition rate so that, because the sending school districts are all waiting for that piece so they can finish their budgets.
So,
I have to look at the calendar, what time it is. It's in the middle of the day, though. It's not at the regular 4 or 5 o'clock time. But it's really critical that you're there. And Zoom is fine if you're not able to come in a different way.
Wait, what time is it?
So,
Yeah.
we're talking about a Zoom meeting on that day,
On the 9th?
correct?
Okay.
At what time? 5?
Yeah, you actually sent out the Google Meet invite.
And it's Zoom only, right? Okay.
Nicole, where is she? Thank you, Dave.
Are we
All right.
finding the time?
remember, we're actually required to have.
All meetings be hybrid. So I will be in person if anybody would love to join me.
What time is it?
I see it as 5 o'clock, special board meetings at 5.
That you approved, it's on the 9th at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke, it is at 5 p.m.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, Chad, you have a question?
That was my question, was just that
Okay.
everybody else.
So the
was
time
asking.
is 5. If you have to come on Zoom, it'll be available, obviously. But we really need the attendance.
January 9th, yeah.
Christine, go ahead.
I'm wondering, is there any chance that the budget will need to get amended in any way after the 9th? Like, are you gonna hear from the AOE at some point and things are like crazy again, or, I mean, it seems pretty early to adopt a budget just in the scheme of things, but I might be wrong about that.
Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, I will let, Austin and David.
Speak to that a little bit more, but at this point, the only thing that we're waiting for from AOE is what's called our frozen FTE number, which is our 6-semester average. But we have, I mean, we can calculate that ourselves, and our number is never exactly what AOE gives us, I don't know, but it's close enough that we can do the budget. I'm never gonna say never about the AOE throwing us some sort of crazy curveball. And David and Austin are gonna talk a little bit about the crazy curveball we got last week, as they do the budget presentation. But this is sort of the way that we generally have to do this process, because we don't have enough information for this meeting to vote, but we have enough information to give you everything we know. And then you actually do the vote generally in a special meeting in January, so that we can get the number to our sending school districts before it's too late for them to budget.
Any other questions regarding that? Steve?
I know that you have been working with the business managers at each of the sending districts. They have been kept apprised of where the number is landing. And you know, people that are saying, push that back, you know that the sending districts have to have their budgets in by the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. So this is pushing it for them already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would encourage that is our final vote on the 9th. So.
The other logistical piece that feeds into it is notifying the towns to get the ballots warned. So we really can't delay much further than that week, just because of the preparation that goes into the ballot warning and circulating information to taxpayers.
Any other questions regarding that? So that's the adjustment. Bill, go ahead.
Yeah. So my understanding is the 9th is the last date for us to actually approve it. The last date that it actually can be warned, so they can get it in time to be able to get it out to their voters. Is that correct?
Nicole, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, it's not
Set in stone, but logistically, yes, because we have to, like Austin said, we have to not only just tell all of our sending school districts, but we have to get the annual report finished, get the actual ballot done. So, I mean, it's not a set in stone date, but that's the date after which it would be problematic for people.
Did that answer for you, Bill?
That works for me.
Thank you. Anything else regarding that? Well, next is the budget presentation, so we will have.
Austin's gonna hand out some things, and I'm gonna share the screen.
Thank you.
It's 3 different budgets often.
Just two pages. One's double-sided.
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. Now I get it. Yep.
Okay, let everybody kind of put their.
You done?
Okay, can everybody hear me if I stay here? I want to try to drive and. Great. After several meetings, thank you Budget Committee and Judd for helping us. We went through several scenarios of, which we can talk a little bit about, but we kind of landed on how can we get this budget at a point where we don't have to disrupt major programs or don't have to cut programs, but we can continue on and continue to grow. So what we've done here, if you're looking at the sheet, let me just walk through what you're seeing. The programs are listed on the left. That starts with architecture, goes down to welding. The first column is the FY25 warned budget. So that's the budget that you guys voted on, and we went to the town and, you approved, and we went to town and voted on. What happens between that time, which was January, February of last year, and the beginning of school, which is in August, a lot of things change. People quit, people hire, and so we do a revised budget. You notice that the total is the same, $5,279,000, but we move money around a little bit to meet the reality of what we're trying to do here. So that's the pink, that's where we are today, that's this year's budget, revised budget. And then FY26 in the green is the new budget, the new proposed budget. And the difference, the change, YOY is year over year. I'm an accountant, so I have like fun little acronyms. So that's the change, and we can go through all of this in line by line, and I've got some explanations on your page, behind the next page on your sheet. Over on the left is other departments, so from director to the board, treasurer, debt service, that kind of stuff. And then at the bottom, grand total 5.279 is the budget for FY25, and grand total 5,704,280 is the total for the proposed budget, which represents an 8.04 increase. Now, I will point out that this budget represents cutting 2 half-time TA positions. Given that we required to have a TA for 16 students or more, that can change again when we get into August. And it's a great problem to have if we have more than 16 people starting in a class. But for now, our estimate is that we will reduce payroll by 1 FTE or 2 half-time TAs. The other thing this represents is a 9% increase in the union increase in teachers. We expect that the teaching assistants union is going to negotiate the same. That's in process. And we had a 12% increase in our health insurance from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and just general inflation. So we feel that at an 8% increase in a budget, where we're headwinds of a 9% increase in salaries and a 12% increase in healthcare and inflation, this is actually trimming things. We're cutting down, we are skinnying things up. What I will point out is if we need to reduce the budget further, that means we have to cut a program. So that's where we are. This represents the status quo of what we're doing, what programs we are offering, at the bare minimum that we can manage. I'm just going to stop there for any questions.
Sorry, we also did cut the architecture.
Architecture and engineering program from this budget. Should we have 8 students sign up, we will have to reevaluate that. But this also, this budget also is a program closure.
Yep.
Steve, or is it?
Yeah, and as was pointed out in the budget committee, if that does poll enough people, 8 people, that we get increased funding for that as well. So, you know, if we have to reintroduce the program, we also will have increased funding. So it actually, I think it more than balances itself out. I think we make more money when we reopen that program than we would keeping it closed. So if you know, you said there's going to be an additional expense, but in that case, there will be additional revenue to counterbalance that, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Technically, Austin, check me on this. What happens is because our revenue is based on the number of FTEs over a 6-semester average, it doesn't immediately help us. But in the long run, we can either cut programs and continue to go down the hole of less students, or we can try to increase programs and try to grow. So that's hopefully what we can do, and we are advertising architecture and engineering, and if we have students, we will figure that out.
Christine, go ahead.
I'm wondering if you can speak to the 5 areas on this list that, with the big decreases that are showing
Sure.
for auto.
Let me, I'm gonna go down to the next page. And let's talk about it here.
Actually, David, sorry to interrupt. Before you do that, do you want to highlight the debt service and the roof repair component?
Yes,
Before we go down?
Austin.
Yeah.
So on debt service, which is the very bottom right, so as you know, the $799,000, which is in the FY '25 budget, is the debt service for North Campus and for this project, the $8 million project that we did here. North Campus next year in this budget is our last payment. It's $105,000 principal and $4,477 of interest. What you may or may not know is our roof at North Campus is failing, and we might have another year. Certainly, we want to begin planning for that and having engineers and contractors and starting that process. So what we've done here in this budget is we've done a $400,000 financing for 10 years, which adds about $50,000 to our debt service. The reason it's $34,000 this year is because the North Campus is lower and increasing of the 55 for the 400,000. So what we have in here is a plan to have a $400,000 lease, financing, bond, we don't know, but some kind of financing vehicle where we borrow $400,000 to pay for the roof, and then financed over 10 years. And that would be about $55,000 over the next 10 years. One of the scenarios that we looked at and what we wish we could do is a $1.5 million lease or financing for 20 years, and that would add $109,000 to our budget. So because $50,000 or $59,000 is 1% of our budget, you know, if we do that, we're going to look at a 9% increase, and when we show the tuition, it's going to increase more. So, you know, the prudent thing is to do $400,000 here. It's not the best long-term, I think, because we've got more things that we need to do, and it would be nice to kind of have the flexibility, but I think this is what it is.
The other component that we looked at, especially with the finance committee last week, were some other wish list items as far as replacing tired equipment that we need to make new purchases. And this financing scenario here does not account for much beyond the roof and I think another vehicle that we could potentially lease. But as far as replacing some equipment that we were ideally looking at last week, this scenario cut back a bit on those wish list items.
How we're going to handle the vehicle is what we did do in this budget is we put, I forget the number, it's about, if we lease, so our bus is dying and it's old and to get it to run, it's going to cost us, I think, $16,000 to get it inspected and all that. That's basically a year's lease of a new bus. So we're looking at options, and what I've done is I've put in the expense of leasing a bus for 3 years annually is about $20,000. So I put in a $20,000 expense item to cover the leasing of a short bus, which is called short bus, and I think it carries 14 students.
And one of an important piece of feedback we
Need from the board tonight is this debt service what you want, or are you interested in bumping the debt service up in order to replace the vehicles and buy some equipment? We just, either way, if we put the larger debt service in here, it would raise the percent increase by, I think, about 1%. So that's the consideration for the board. We currently built it in to not have that, 1%. But and, not but and this also means then that there's not money to do more than maybe replace a van. And there's no money to replace the large pieces of equipment that are failing, like the lift.
Judd, you have a question?
Not so much a question, but just everyone here on the board has probably heard this 1,000 times, but what we were discussing with the wish list and the other items, they can be good-sized numbers, but because it's a school, because it's all teachers, because it's health insurance, it's a human expense business, so to speak. So even with all the wish list items, it's very hard to get the needle to move much. It's just, you know, there's the human cost of annual health insurance and salaries. So it's tough to find money places. But the other thing was, one of the things that Steve had mentioned at the committee meeting was, it's very hard for their sending schools to consider, or we have to also consider our budget, how it affects the sending schools in tuition, and maybe Steve could speak better to that than I can, but just for anybody on the board who hasn't been through this, it's a very tangled web, and I do think
Bill, go ahead.
Bill, you're muted.
You're muted, Bill.
One of the things that, one of the reasons we're looking at this debt service is we don't have a pot of money hidden somewhere that we've been pitching funds into every year, correct?
Capital fund.
This basically shows the sending schools and people, you know, this is how we're trying to do stuff. You know, it's not like we've got a fire truck fund that's sitting someplace getting 3% every year that we're putting some money into, correct?
We do have a BERF, which is the Building and Equipment Reserve Fund, which has about $68,000 in it. We have not tapped into that at all, but I think that money could be used to, let's say, buy the lift, because that's a critical piece. But we really do need to start building that up.
Right, generally, the sweet spot for a school district is to have about a 5% reserve. That's sort of your, not hidden pot of money, but your rainy day fund. And we're running tight.
So we're talking about doing a small Band-Aid where we can't really do everything we want to do, or taking a look at the 1% increase that'll be over 20 years, like 105 a year or something like that, correct?
Correct. That's the piece that we're asking the board to weigh in on tonight. What you're looking at is without that 100,000 a year. And that's truly a board decision.
And it's interesting.
We have to do the roof.
We have to do the roof.
The roof is gonna have to be done.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's interesting, we're considering a $400,000 line of loan, let's call it, leasing at $55,000 a year for 10 years, versus if we went with a $1.5 million, we're $110,000 over 20 years. So it's really a $50,000 difference, at least for the next 10 years, of between a $400,000 and a $1.5 million. Unfortunately, that increases our budget by 1%.
Judd?
Is it the sort of thing where if we put out in whatever terms we want to get the 400,000 to do the roof, and let's call it a van, and that gets us down the road, and then we find ourselves where we have more enrollment and we have a bigger budget, then if we wanted to do a bond to bump us up to that remaining amount, there's nothing that precludes us from then wrapping this debt into that, and, okay, great.
Yeah.
So even if we did have to do it in a 1-2,
Yeah, and I think this will be a conversation next year, right?
Steve?
Yeah, and I spoke at great length in the finance committee about this, but, yeah, and thank you, gentlemen, for adjusting the budget, because it seems like you gave that opportunity for the board to make that decision. What I knew was that we are only having a 2% increase at ACSD, and it is cutting deep. We are losing full-time positions, and then to ask to pay, this additional amount for an additional bond, the optics were really bad for us. And I said I couldn't speak for Mount Abe and I couldn't speak for Addison Northwest, but it seems to me like everybody in the state is kind of in that position. Last year was a bloodbath. I mean, just ask the legislature how many people went home, and that was because of the school spending. So it's not that I don't agree that these things need to be done and that we are being penny wise and pound foolish by pushing it out, but we are also pushing it out for 1 year right now. We can do this again next year when hopefully the climate is more favorable, but it was really hard for me to see that, you know, we're asking for $1.5 million lease, because I can't say bond. Somebody gets upset when I say bond. So it's not a, we don't need to do these things, we need to do these things. We should have that reserve fund, that capital reserve fund that Bill is talking about. But the reality is, you know, people are gonna lose their seats. You're gonna have a different board next year if we don't do something about this. And it just seemed like, I hate to do it, you know, being a finance guy, I really hate to do what we're suggesting here, but I also am a politician and I see what that handwriting is too. And so, you know, I would encourage the board to think very strongly about it. It seems like 1%. Sending districts aren't gonna see it that way. It's like, wait a minute, we're cutting staff to pay for a nearly 10% increase at Hannaford. It doesn't look good. So,
Christina, you want to speak to that?
I'm just, you know, shaking my head, agreeing with Steve over here, because we just had our budget meeting this past Monday in Addison Northwest, and I mean, everybody is super mindful of trying to, you know, have this, the least amount of increase possible, like, and the look to the public is, you know, I think that kicking the can down the road for the further projects that you're talking about is the way to go. We all need to get our budgets passed first go-around if possible, and the more that we can craft favorable budgets with the least amount of increase is really gonna be, I think, to need to be the goal this year. We have no idea what's gonna happen with this commission and the legislature coming up. It's probably gonna be a whole brave new world next year in terms of how schools are gonna get funded, so, yeah.
Liz, do you have a flavor at Mount Abe? Put you on the spot, budget-wise.
I mean, I would, all of the sentiments that you have, we have, and I think it's because in all of our communities and all of our businesses all have the same sentiment with where we all are. It's just across the board for everyone. This is how we all need to approach it. It's being careful, but I wonder, is there not, so in our school budget, right, we have a reserve fund? And is that not something that's here that you can kind of carry forward and apply to something? I mean, not a reserve fund, you know.
Fund balance.
Fund balance, that's what I meant to say, sorry.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that on the next slide, but yes, that does help reduce, that doesn't help reduce the budget, it helps reduce the tuition. So we'll talk about that in a second. I do want to point out, I just, you know, as I was listening to Steve at the budget, I wanted to point this out for context. So the total budget for Addison County for 24-25 education is $118 million.
For all districts combined, is what
For the 4 districts. The career center represents 4.45% of that entire budget. So, and then if we increase, it's 4.81%, based on these numbers which were proposed, I'm sure are outdated, but this was just something that came across our desk. And that's a 0.36% increase for the entire county. And I think that's an important concept, because when we say our budget increased by 10%, we're talking a $5.8 million, $5.2 million budget, and it's increasing by 500,000 essentially. So our 10% sounds very big, but relative to the entire county, it's minuscule. And I think that's an important talking point for us as we go out into Addison County, you're talking to your colleagues, because it is true, that we are increasing by 10%, or we're asking to, 8%. But we are such a small percentage that that 10% number seems outweighed when you say we're increasing it by 10%. Just an observation.
Yeah, I would counter observe, how many
Yeah.
students are handled by the Career Center, and what's the total enrollment across Addison County? I think it's a pretty low percentage, the number of students that come here versus the number of students that are being educated in Addison County. So be careful,
Sure.
when you're throwing that out there, because if that comes out,
Nicole?
we might get some pushback.
Two
Go ahead,
things.
Nicole.
Actually, we serve a third of the high school students in Addison County. So,
We actually serve a lot of kids. We serve the number of discrete children is around 350 each year. So we serve a lot of children. And I think that there's a misnomer out there that we serve far less kids because people confuse FTE with children. Because we have a whole lot of programs, like all of our pre-tech programs only count for 0.25 FTE. So it takes 4 kids to equal 1 FTE. So, while we're small, we actually touch a third of the high school kids across the county. I think the other thing is, whereas and I've had to cut budgets in regular K-12 school districts, sadly, for 20 years, but when you cut something from a K-12 budget, you aren't also cutting revenue. Our problem is anything that we cut from our budget is generally also cutting revenue. So it doesn't help us very much unless you cut a program with super low enrollment. And currently the only program that we have with super low enrollment is manufacturing, but we aren't paying for manufacturing. We got a grant for that. So, I mean, it's hard to explain, in the Shaw's grocery aisle, but our budgeting is complex because we can't just cut things and have that equal savings.
Questions?
Well, I'm just gonna say, for the sake of time, and back to Christina's original question, do you wanna get to the second half of the slide and then get into the tuition
Yeah,
part?
I see all the
David?
answers back there. Sorry, I had to flip the page over.
Thank you.
One thing I will point out is, like, let's take auto, if someone chooses health insurance or not, it could have a $30,000 impact on our budget, and $30,000 is 0.7 per, it's 0.07. So, in auto, there were some healthcare changes, which changes the budget significantly. Most of these increases are related to the 9% increase in salaries and the 12% increases in health insurance. Like, let's take diesel. We're gonna have a new employee, so we're budgeting a full health insurance package for that person. Got some grant funding. This is where we're reducing the half TA. This is a misnomer because I didn't have, this budget line item is in the Director of Communications line, so it looks a little skewed here. And I apologize for that. But TechCom is gonna continue, let's call it flat funding.
and I think this is a good place to point out that we have
I think successfully brokered a deal with Virgins to be able to keep the Virgins satellite programs going. We still need to see if we get adequate enrollment, but we've worked really hard to make that partnership continue to work. I think it's really good for kids, and it's really good for collegiality across the county. So my current going in position is that we think it's going to work. It pencils out so far, and so we're really happy about that, because originally we thought we were going to have to cut it.
Any other line items that are sticking out?
Liz has a question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's 2 reductions related to, well, no, there's not 2. The grants administration,
Yes, so typically there was a 21,000 and that got rolled into my role, which is, I was doing that anyway, so it just kind of moved around. Sure.
Judd?
One thing you may notice on here is some of the programs have smaller numbers, like half, because, for example, one of our teachers teaches the illustration and design and visual communications, I think, Miss Rader, so she teaches 2 different classes. So there's, in some of the places, you'll notice there are far more programs than there are teachers, and that's because some of the teachers teach 2 programs.
Christina?
The student support services vacancy, I see you guys have, you're hoping to hire that position for next year, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
And
great.
the big discrepancy, I mean, the big difference in that budget is, so, you guys know we lost our support, student support person in October. So, and we hired a temporary consultant to help us with that. So we moved the budget around as we do. Next year, we anticipate having a full-time person, so that's why you see the $83,000 increase. It really is not increasing over budget, from budget to budget, but it
Yeah.
looks like it because we moved things around.
It's actually less though, isn't it, from the FY25 budget?
Yeah,
So,
and that is because there is a TA in the FY24 budget, there was a TA there.
okay. Got it.
The other piece, just for the
Board's knowledge is there are several positions which we're required to have no matter how small or how big we are. And in our case, we're required to have the director, assistant director, we're required to have the special services person, so the special ed position is required, adult education is required, work-based learning is required, and a counselor is required. So those are not areas where we're actually allowed by the laws of Vermont to cut. So, yeah, so those are.
Gotta be in there.
Want to continue? Go ahead.
Any other questions? So at this point, let's look at the tuition. So I'm going to explain to you, if you don't know how this all works, you can get into my right position here. Leave it to Vermont, make it a little complicated. So here's what we have. This is FY24.
Can you maximize that screen? Sorry, it's just really small. Thank you.
And I can make it a little bit bigger. How's that? So let me just walk through how it works. I'm going to start here. This is the proposed budget. So the state told us we're giving you $12,668 per student. That's from the state, that's from the Agency of Education. And what is interesting and troubling for us is that is a 3.12% decrease from last year. Last year they gave us $13,063. This year it's 3% less. And that's significant because that if we're increasing budget by 8%, then the tuition is going to be more around 11-ish, or closer to that. And we don't know why it was decreased. I think there's a whole complicated formula to create that, but it's not decreased in a long time. So that's something new and very surprising.
And this is the curveball that I was mentioning earlier.
Where for the last 10 years, this number has gone up every year. And with all of the economic indicators, it should have also gone up this year. And all of the superintendents, because this affects the base rate of this regular school districts too for things like special education and other things. So everybody is screaming about this and wanting to see the numbers, see the math. And we have not been successful in getting any resolution to why this number went down, when all of the indicators should say it should have gone up.
So then we bring in our budget from that we just talked about, $5,704,000, represents an 8.04 increase. What we do is we back out any kind of revenue that we're going to get from other sources. So, Liz, you mentioned fund balance. So over the last 3 years, we have taken fund balance and took it as revenue the next year. So in FY '24 budget, we recognized $275,000 of fund balance as revenue for FY '24. Last year, you guys recognized, we voted $130,000 to bring into revenue, and we're proposing $150,000 this year. That's in yellow because we can change that. That's something that we want to decide tonight. There are other small grants, and then we get state money to supplement the required salaries that we have to pay. So those are the director, the workforce-based learning, and those kind of things. So all in all, we have an additional $310,000 in revenue. And so if you take the budget minus that $310,000, we land at, we need $5,394,000. Based on our 6 semester average of students, we have 136.55 FTE. Notice it's been increasing slowly, which is great. The state gives us, the way they do it is, so the 668 is our base rate. The state gives us 87% of that for each student. So we take the FTE amount, the 136.55 times 87%, and we get 87% of the base rate, and we get 1.5 million. So that's money that the Agency of Education will give us. The same thing is the next step is they give us 35% of, and I'm not sure exactly what this is called.
It's tech tuition assistance from the state.
Tuition assistance.
Yeah.
So what we look at is of our budget, of the $5,704,000 budget, we're getting sources of revenue except for $3,283,000. And that represents the number that we need to ask the schools to pay. What we do is we divide that by our 136.55 FTEs, and it comes out to $24,049 of what we would ask the schools to pay.
Per FTE.
Per FTE.
Yep.
So if you take the 24,000 and add the 11,021, which is the portion that we will get from the state, our tuition is their tuition would be $35,070. That represents a 9.81% increase in the tuition. So the budget's 8%, tuition 9.8% increase. And the last part here is this just a roll forward of the fund balance. The reason we're proposing 150, which is tight, but we estimate that we're going to have 190,000, or at least $190,000 fund balance at the end of this, as of June 30, 2025.
So that means that if we do this, then we would
Only be leaving ourselves about $40,000 in fund reserve, in fund balance.
So let me just play around here. If we said, oh, we don't want to do that, and I'm going to do a $100,000 fund balance, I will put 100,000 up here, and you'll watch how we go from 9.81% increase to a 10.96% increase. So that has a significant impact on our budget, on our tuition rate.
I did, just for the board's knowledge.
I have been telling since for months now that I've been telling all of the sending school district superintendents that although at that point we hadn't yet done the math, it seemed unlikely, given a 9% salary increase and a 12% insurance increase, that our tuition increase would be anything less than 10%. So the number that I've been talking about for months has been 10%.
And this is 9.8.
Yeah, but it leaves us with a $40,000
Oh, yeah.
cash reserve, or projected cash reserve. We don't know that till the end of the year, what it's gonna be.
And that's uncomfortably tight, I take it.
It is very uncomfortable because if something fails, that's where that money comes from.
Questions,
We don't have-
questions directed towards, our business people? Would be helpful if you have any suggestions, how we want to change that or not.
What is the lowest number you can go and stay, 10% or under? Is it 140, is it 130?
My spreadsheet's interactive.
Yeah, right, that's why I'm asking.
Oh, wait, 100 is 1096, so 130 is 120, 110.
The other variable to highlight, which you may see from fiscal year '24, is in years past, the Perkins grant has been budgeted in the general fund, and that's something that we're changing, and it's not always best practice to keep a federal grant baked into your general fund budget. So in years past, that was how the school operated, and moving forward, we're pulling that out. So you'll see a big drop in the revenue side from fiscal year '24 compared to recent years and next year.
142,500 is our number.
142.
I will point out this here. So we know that we had a $223,000 fund balance at the end of the audit, June 2023. You guys voted 130,000 last year. This 97,500 represents the energy tax rebate that we're getting this year from the from the renovation project. So we know if we have a level balance, in other words, if we spend exactly what our budget is, we know we'll get a $97,500 increase because that wasn't budgeted last year. So that's why I'm saying at least we're going to get a $97,000 increase to our fund balance as a result of this year. I think we're going to be better than that, but that, again, we don't know, and part of that is because our audit has been delayed. We're just not at that point. So this is an estimate.
And is that that's not something we can use this year anyway?
Correct.
Correct.
Yep. You're talking tax abatement, Bill?
Yeah, the
Yes.
fund balance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Liz?
Can you explain a little more about, so transportation reimbursement comes from the school districts or from the state?
Yes, so we get we calculate how many miles we've driven students, and we get reimbursed for that.
It's state reimbursed.
State reimbursed? And then just following up is, I'd like to know more about how we use the bus that we would be thinking about leasing. I understand the idea of it, but how does it get utilized?
Good question. So, part of the curriculum for career technical
Education classes is going into the field, either going to workplaces or doing job shadows or cooperative opportunities or field trips. It's a pretty critical part of what we're required to do so that students get to see real life experiences in those fields. So generally, career centers have maybe one big bus, a couple of little like transit type vans, like the transit system uses, those little white buses, and then a couple of vans, because we're running kids all over the place, all over Addison County, every day for
outreach
experiences. And especially for co-ops, if a student is doing an internship or an apprenticeship or a paid internship or a cooperative experience, we can't let transportation be a barrier, because many of our kids don't have their own transportation, so we drive them in a van to their place so that they can participate. So field trips, work-based learning experiences, and job shadows and field, like Aaron takes his students to the woods all the time because they're logging or doing wildlife repair for wildlife wetlands repair, that sort of thing.
Can I add to that? So we have looked at just renting a bus, the beta bus. It's about $1,000 a day. So with doing field trips a couple times a month, that adds up very quickly. So it does make economic sense to lease or buy or finance our bus because we really run into that. And there's some, if you have a big bus that's over 16 students, you have to have a CDL class 1, a 14 bus. The one that we're thinking about is a class 2 CDL, which requires a lot less schooling, and a lot of our teachers are certified. And then we also have 2 vans, which is used to transport smaller. We can have 4 students and a teacher, driver, 5 people in the van. So we do try to minimize that, but we just haven't replaced any of the buses. We've had 3 that are old. We sold one last year. One's usable and one's sitting in the shop with no transmission.
And Liz, for your information, David was instrumental in obtaining a grant for us to buy 2 voters and so on, and letting him know that we're trying and exhausting every other avenue we can to try and keep that budget down. Anything else? Guys want to, Dan, go ahead.
If I could just add, knowing that the salary increase next year is about 3% less than the increase this year, can we plan on keeping the budget level with what we have now and picking up that 3% towards, or part of that 3% towards this fund? Just looking ahead, that if we keep the tuition more or less level or a slight increase next year with the with a smaller increase in salaries, can we
David,
use
you
that
want to talk to that?
Yeah, I think the hard variable in that is the health insurance.
Yeah.
Our salaries and benefits are 75% of our budget. With a 12% increase, we were a large increase last year.
Yeah.
That's I would not want to commit to that.
It'll definitely help, but to your point, David, there's some factors that are beyond our control. And again, if the state reduces the state-based payment that they make to us, that exacerbates the issue. I do think if we're looking ahead to the following school year's budget, the North Campus bond will retire, and that's a $100,000 payment plus interest that we're making, and so we can look at ways to offset level funding a line item like that to make capital expenditure or other purchases. So that'll help, and certainly going from a 9% to a 6% in salaries it's helpful, but there are other variables that.
Yeah, and how many times can health insurance increase more than 10% a year?
Right.
How much have we gone up in the last 2 years? 26%? Is that something? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's sad to say. In some ways, we were lucky it wasn't 15 or 17 like it has been in years past.
Right.
So
Well, we'll vote the legislators out if they keep this up.
yeah.
This is like saying, it can't get any worse than this, right?
I know.
Somebody will say, challenge accepted.
I will share with you that the Green Mountain Healthcare Board sets that rate, by the way. A lot of people aren't aware of that. And it is not the legislature, it's the Green Mountain Healthcare Board. They also set the hospital's rate. So those are things that they have not been public about. And as a member of that Healthcare Commission negotiating piece for the state, for the teachers, we have questioned that. We also question the fact that, and I've mentioned this before, is that Blue Cross Blue Shield has been their carrier for 25 years. And they have not gone out and solicited any other bidding process. And we encouraged it. I'm not sure if they'll do it. But in this conversation we had with VHI to say, why not? And so we'll see what happens. But the rates hopefully could be adjusted in regards to that. But somebody actively has to pursue that. And you know, they're obviously in favor of the Green Mountain Healthcare Board because they tell them what to set for a rate. So they don't have to do that. But as a pushback from our group, we've been trying to get that to work. And, you know, I've had that conversation also with the NEA because they're involved with that process, of course. So just a little information when you're in the toilet paper aisle at Shaw's and somebody says, how come our budgets are so high? Explain to them between the health care and the salaries. This is all that's left. So if we need a new bus or we need a new van, there are a variety of ways that we can do that. But it still ultimately is going to affect the school, no matter which school your children go to and how that goes. They don't also understand, in this building especially, how much this equipment costs and how much the tractor costs, unless they're in farming or whatever. For them to understand those pieces, it's really important to talk about. By the way, you may not have one of these in your yard, but you know, you're going to need somebody maybe to come and work on this, and they need to know how to operate a tractor or whatever. And we're going to try and do those things for the students, and to try and keep them in Vermont. I think we all forget that piece about, you know, how are they going to be successful? Are we going to train them to have a, you know, livable wage, want to stay here, and like maybe what they're doing, which is, you know, and then the ages of different contractors and so on in the area. It's about 55. And to train new people to do automotive diesel work, whatever, some of our more popular programs, we're going to have to keep those going. And lifts and things like that cost money for the equipment that we need to train them to be state-of-the-art and to be able to work at G-Stones or wherever. The knowledge is a big thing with a lot of the people that don't have anybody going to school here. They don't understand where they can go once they leave here. And it's a pretty good group of alumni that help support that piece when they come back and talk about that. You know, where did I get my leadership skills? Where did I get my day-to-day organizational work skill set? Here. And those are things I try and sell on a regular basis. David?
I'm just in for time, I wanted to ask, I mean, what I need from you guys today really is, are we good with these numbers? If we're not good with these numbers, we need to talk about where we're cutting, like what programs we would cut, or how we would get there. Are we good with the debt service levels? I think those are the two key things that I need. So I'm just curious how you guys are around.
And the tax abatement plug too.
And the tax abatement.
Okay, Judd?
So this is just under a discussion topic, so this isn't gonna get voted on in motions or anything, right? This is just.
Right, that's correct.
So just sort of a straw poll type of thing that, looking at this budget that you presented with the $400,000, if I'm not mistaken, for the roof
Included?
is what you've got here.
Yeah.
So it's not the 1.5, but it's the 400,000 that is like the triage amount, the emergency amount. It's just the two TAs being reduced, and it keeps it just under the 10% increase.
Yeah. And just for fun, I will, if we bump up the debt service to what it would be if we borrowed the 1.5 million, and we look at our tuition rate. Oops, sorry. Oh, you're seeing the guts.
Well, either way, I think my point was that I'm hearing what's going on around, especially from Steve and Kristen. Sorry, I choked there as a
That's okay.
Christina. That I think I support that, the 400,000 one with the just shy of 10%. What was it, 8.8?
Yeah.
I think we need to be extremely sensitive to those points that they're making from the sending districts.
David, for broader context, do you want to explain how that $1.5 million would be used? So in addition to the financing for the North Campus roof, what other equipment purchases would we make with that money?
Well, there's a document, we call it the wish list. For instance, the roof, there are some other remodeling that needs to happen at North Campus. It's a 20-year-old building, so we're getting to that point. There's some other things that were not addressed here at main campus. It's about $100,000, and that includes some significant gutter work, which will unfortunately deteriorate some of the work that's dishwasher is $40,000, $40,000 piece of equipment. It's on, its last 5 years, 3 years. We've got a couple of other big pieces of equipment in culinary. There's a tractor. We might need a tractor. There is the auto lift. And you talk about these $50,000 pieces of equipment, and it adds up pretty quick. What I will say to you is what we want to do is, if you guys are coming back to us and say, we've got $400,000, we're going to start planning to spend the $400,000. We're going to figure out what that is, and we would come to you to say, here's what the budget is, and here's what we're going to do, and maybe it's $250,000, or maybe it's $410,000. The same thing with 1.5. We don't have to borrow all that at one time, right? What we could do is establish a line of credit or a leasing. There's a leasing options that are more expensive than a bond, but not very, and a lot more flexibility that we could use that. So in the reality, it wouldn't be $110,000 a year starting now. It would build up to a maximum of, or maybe we don't need to use it. So the takeaway for me is no matter what, we're going to start digging into that and start planning that, because I think I'm hearing in the future we need to start, putting that down. But I think the roof is kind of the start. North Campus roof is a start.
I think, David, too, the other part of this conversation is giving the taxpayers the information of saying, by the way, this one bond is ending, and yes, we have an $8 million bond, and if you come down and visit, you'll see where that money went. And it gives them a psychological break for coming back into the voting booth this year and saying, oh, here's another bond. Let's give it a break. We're going to try and work as well as we can to repair the roof, because the physical structure piece, people get that. They understand that. When you start naming the equipment and so on, if they haven't been here and they're not a regular visitor, they have a really hard, that's a hard sell, especially when their budgets from the sending schools are going so high. So I think giving a break, that to me makes a lot more sense. Christina, first.
Has there been a quote on the roof project? Like, do you know how much that roof is actually going to cost?
Yeah, we've had an initial quote, and it's at the, and that was like a year and a half ago, and it's at like $320,000.
Okay, so it's probably going to be 400.
400,000 is my estimate.
Right.
Just to
Especially now.
confirm that.
Dan?
Yeah, I would just say that based on what you just mentioned and what we're looking at is we can honestly say that we are bare bones on this. There's no fluff. We're not replacing anything that doesn't need replacing.
Steve?
I'm going to take a break from the conversation, and I would like to thank our new automotive teaching assistant for being very patient. He should not have had to sit through all of this.
I find it all very fascinating.
And I would let you know, and I think this is true, that you are free to leave. As wonderful and as fascinating, as entertaining as we all are, I'm sure you have more important things to do, and please don't feel that you need to stay for the rest of this.
But you're also welcome to if you'd like
You are
to.
welcome to, but.
Yeah.
Well, we're almost done, aren't we?
Not quite.
Sections move, some move faster than others, but anyway, thank you. Any other questions regarding what?
Yes, please.
Go. Go, Bill.
So quick question then. So it sounds like, because I wasn't aware we could do this on a line of credit, but we can set up a line of credit if we want and only draw what we're going to need on it. And we can do that basically with the approval of the board.
David, you want to answer that?
Yes, I think so. I think if we were going to sign a line of credit for $400,000, we would get your approval. That would need to be voted on. But we wouldn't draw it all down at once. We would just use it as we needed to.
Does that do anything to anything else that we're involved in? Does it preclude us from getting money from somewhere else if it falls out of the sky?
It doesn't. The one piece is that we just have to account for any interest in this budget, right? It would have to be part of this budget.
together and the budget committee. You guys have done a great job.
Absolutely. Very good.
We do need,
Go
Sort of
ahead.
a straw poll, that your official vote will be on the December meeting, but we do need a straw poll about the
right here, the yellow that you're looking
looking at, and then also the debt service.
so that
We know what to bring you on January 9th.
Mike?
So David, what's your recommendation? Like, what do you think we should do?
In Austin.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
I feel like you guys have probably talked about it.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the variables, the tax abatement, the 150 number feels both conservative, but also, given the incomplete information we're up against at the moment, it feels like the best estimate we can do from today's vantage point. And I think same goes for the financing. You know, to Kim's point, financing a roof is a necessary need that we have to address. I think it'd be helpful to look at flexible options in that. But I do hear externally if there are a lot of pressures about, we've already voted on a monster bond and giving taxpayers a break. This is a nice way to do that while being fiscally responsible and conservative, addressing immediate needs and having some balance there. What else would you add to that, David?
What I would add is that, if we start as an organization, start cutting programs, then we're just cutting ourselves to man, is one thing. This budget represents the slimmest that we can get and still provide quality education to to Addison County. I think there's other solutions, and this is another part that when we start going out on the road show, we want to talk about. Austin and I are going to go with Nicole to the boards, is like, if, I'll just use an example, if our FTE rate average was 145, do you see the significant impact it has on the tuition rate?
You're gonna have to say it because they can't see it.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's hard to read it from here.
oh, sorry. It increases to 32,000, and it's only a 2.6% increase. So the key here is not to cut the budget. The key here is to get more students in these doors and increase the FTEs. And I think if we can figure that secret sauce out, that works with everyone's schedule and the school budgets, you know, because we know that the schools have a line item on their budget for the Career Center. To me, that's the key. And how we do that, I think, is one, we be responsible, we try to show people, and then we're also doing a lot of outreach, which I think is very, very important. So my recommendation is, this is a really solid budget that doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt the programs. It tightens the belt, but we can manage that, and I think that's a prudent thing to do.
Thank you.
You take straw vote? What are we looking at? What are we looking at? What's up on the board?
What's on this
Steve?
paper, is what's up there different from this?
150 in the.
Because I can't really
Just so we know what we're looking at, 'cause we can't see back here.
Well, let me zoom in a little bit, but. Is that, I don't know what the sheet looks like.
Yeah, it's the same, like, numbers are the same.
Yep, that's pretty much,
35070. Yeah.
yeah, with a budget of, 5704. Yep.
Great. Steve?
So I would like to commend you gentlemen for doing a fantastic job on this budget, and I would personally like to adopt it as it was presented with the 150 and with the $400,000 debt service. Or, you know, as presented in the initial materials, I like that.
Cheers.
Okay, straw, raise a hand if you agree, or, okay. All righty, I think that's it. Does that give you your answer?
Yes, I just want to point out, Steve, I really appreciate your feedback. I think you've been vital in the committee meetings and bring a really good perspective. So I just want to say I really appreciate your involvement.
I would second that, and what you raised last week was instrumental in building the financing picture here, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else regarding the budget at this point? So again, just a reminder, we do the vote on the 9th. We do need your vote to make sure that happens and that we show, obviously a group of unity in regards to what the numbers are and how we've all worked on that. As for talking points, feel free to call these guys. Get your name, whatever you need to talk to your board about it if you haven't heard it this evening. Those are key pieces. I think the video that's going to be shown, some of those things will highlight some of the programs here that some newer board members in the Sunday schools have no idea what goes on here. And encourage them to come and visit. But again, if they haven't had the experience of this diamond in the rough, I call it over here, it's worth your while. Mike?
Yeah, so I was able to go to all the classes today because of a student that I work with. And if you had come in here 3 years ago and gone into the fabrication, what Doug's class was in the past, it's like going from walking into a log cabin to walking onto the Starship Enterprise. It's a completely different scenario. So I really think that there's an evolution that's happened at the Career Center over the last 4 or 5 years that's pretty revolutionary. And so to be able to communicate that and to get people to understand the transformation and the new programming, stuff like that, it's just instrumental. So
one of the other pieces at the bottom of the agenda is the roadshow meetings that Nicole will be at, and made the suggestion that David and company come to those meetings. I think, in the past, many years ago, when another business manager was here, they actually did the financial part, and Lynn Cole did the song and dance part. But I think, it's really helpful, whether you're a community at large member or whatever, if you can go. Also, I intend to hopefully also go and visit one of the other sending schools. I think you'll see, it gives you a flavor of what the other boards are like. Those dates are all listed at the bottom if you have any questions about it. And I think it gives us an opportunity to give, answer questions from the floor if necessary, and to give Nicole and us and Dave some feedback of what, how we read the room. Because I think that's another piece that is really, really helpful as a follow-up to, do we need to tweak it for next year or not, or whatever. But I would put that out there. Anything else for you guys? Thank you very, very much. You've exceeded our expectations, as usual. Thank you. So next, there's an approval of policy E20 for facility use. And Steve-O, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
The policy committee, this is what we have been doing for a very long time. We think we have it ready, and I'm pretty sure that we've done enough preface work where we say, this is what we're talking about, and this is why. It's taken a while for us to hammer this out. You can go ahead, yeah.
Yes, one eagle-eye person, Linda, pointed out that at the very beginning, it is the policy of should be deleted, and it should just start with the. Otherwise, I think it's ready to go.
Let me get the printed version out here.
It should read what?
It says, right now, it says, it is the policy of the blah, blah, blah.
Patricia Hannaford.
Yes, it should maybe just say the Patricia Hannaford recognizes. Instead, it is the policy of the recognizes.
Do you need the the?
Linda asked me to bring this up.
You're saying,
Do you even need the the?
Yeah, take out is the policy of and
But
start
do you
with
need the? Why do you need the?
Well, okay, I mean, the Patricia recognizes, okay, you could just say Patricia Hannaford recognizes. Otherwise.
Okay, a quick synopsis of what the policy is.
Basically, the SBA puts out a recommended policy in which they say if you're going to open your school facilities, there's two options. you may say whatever the body is does not open the facility to public. Nobody can use outside of the school. That's one option. Second option is allow public use of the building. If you allow public use of the building, you have to have a policy that outlines what that is. Unfortunately, what the VSBA gave us was a policy that would work for K-12, not letting people use machines that can cut your arm off or burn your hand. So we very much had to say, what it basically says is, you either open your school or you don't open your school. And what we had to say was, we're opening part of the school. And it's only these places that are available for community use, mostly with an eye towards, if you look, I don't want to give away
This room.
This is scheduled.
yeah, the very last page,
Yeah.
where it talks about area usage section. In other words, we are not opening the Career Center. We are opening 4 areas of the Career Center, mostly because those areas are already in use by the public, and the instructors that serve in those places have said, yes, it's okay, I'm okay with you using my stuff. So, letting people in a commercial kitchen, without somebody that's dicey at best. And so what we're doing here is saying, these are the 4 areas that the community could possibly use. And there are a very strict set of guidelines that we will follow to be able to make that happen. In the next parts of the policy, when they're talking about administrative responsibilities, superintendent shall establish a procedure, and superintendent may deny an application for the following reasons. Those are pretty close to boilerplate what VSBA has said. And so we're pretty sure that this very complicated, highly researched policy is going to pass legal muster. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, but this has or has not been reviewed by our legal counsel.
Yes, Piotr reviewed it himself, and he said that it was good to go. He just reviewed that we need to take the VSBA language off of it, like recommended and stuff like that.
Yeah. So we did kind of hit this one on the head. If you look at the footnotes, if you just take a glance at the footnotes, this is all the legal precedent that you don't normally see in a policy. Normally policies are pretty well laid out. This is based on case law, and there's a lot of it. So if you're going to open your school building to, I don't know, the atheist book club, you have to open it to Nazis for the Pinewood Derby kind of stuff. So we don't get to choose that. You don't get to pick who gets to use the facility. What we can say is that we can choose what areas to open up because we have a strong interest in preserving those areas for instruction. For example, if the manufacturing machine, some group comes in here and breaks it, it would take a long time, it would be very expensive to fix it, and even if they pay for it, it will take that machine out of service for our students for foreseeably a month to 6 weeks to even get someone in to look at the machine. So that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. And that's why much of the Career Center is restricted. So if you look at the opening part, administrative responsibility, it says, these are the kind of things that we're looking for. Notice that nothing in there says that we will review who is meeting or why they're meeting, because we cannot do that. So what you're voting on here is a policy that outlines how we open the facility, but not who we open it to. Okay, so if you're looking for, and we're going to stop this from happening or that from happening, we have a very, very limited amount of control that we can exercise in that. So please read the policy with that in mind. Yeah, and I can talk for a long time about this. Obviously, we've spent hours talking about this in the committee meeting, but I would like to, since this is the first read, give you a gloss of what you're gonna see here, and then come back for the next meeting, and we will adopt it.
Christina has a question.
Oh,
Well, I noticed it's on here as an action item to approve, and this is the first read-through,
It's the
so
first
we're
read.
not gonna be voting on this?
so we won't be
No.
voting on this.
Um, And I also wanted to point out, there's a little bit of, there's a formatting issue in here, in case anybody notices, the footnotes will need to get renumbered when we get to the final version, just FYI.
And the reason the footnoting is gonna adjust is because we gave you the strike-through copy, so you could see what was in here. Once we strike through, but by striking through it, it doesn't get rid of footnote 12. And footnote 12 still shows up in the document. When we actually edit the policy and get rid of footnote 12, that reference will go away. You know, it was a choice of showing you the red line and highlighted document, or fixing it to be camera ready and then explaining to you each and everything that we changed. We thought that this would be the better way to present it. So this gives you an idea of what was in the policy, what we struck, and what we ended up keeping in or adding to the policy.
Yes.
So, strike through, I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, but I actually prefer that, because then I can see what the changes are.
No Bill likes that.
So, this is the first
Yes.
view,
Yes.
all right? So we're not voting this evening, it says action
We're
item,
not.
we're not doing that. If you have any questions, please address them to the policy committee. And then when we come back, if we need to make any more changes, we will obviously do that before we vote on it.
There is a question, because we proposed this in a policy committee at ACSD, and they said, if we change this, we have to rewarn it as first reading, because you can only present a policy that's ready to go, and the public has to be able to see that
And comment.
for 10 days
Yeah.
before you adopt it.
Right.
So if we make any substantive changes other than changing ors
you've
to
done
ifs
now.
or
Mhm.
striking out a few things, if we make any substantive changes to this, this will not count as the first reading.
Right,
Okay, so.
that's why you have the first reading.
Yes,
Yeah.
so this is for the board, and the public, of course, can comment on this, but this is so the board, who may not have seen this policy at all and may have not spent time with it, for you guys to read it and say, oh, wait a minute, did you guys look at this? And we might say, that never came up in our discussion, so.
Where will this be available for the public to look at, if they choose to?
I believe.
There's a link in the
There's a link in the agenda, yes,
so
there's a link in the
I think
agenda.
So if they
and-
go to the page, look at the agenda for this meeting, they should be able to see that,
Click the link.
Yes, and
hopefully.
there's probably a link in the policy committee minutes too.
There should be, we have had some difficulty with that before,
Okay.
but,
Yeah.
Just,
there's
just as
assuming-
public's
We
watching
can
this.
double check about that.
Yeah, and I don't know, so it's a questionable thing. We can't, where all the policies are, if we were to put this in the policy database, that would be extremely confusing.
Yeah.
Is this a policy that's been, and I would strongly recommend that we do not do that. I have not explored, or nor have, as anyone asked, to make this a separately viewable link on the,
Yeah, it's right in the agenda.
you know,
So
so,
I read it this morning.
I don't know that it needs to be further.
No, but a little bit of conversation right now allows the public who would watch this
Oh, yes,
to understand where they can go and find it,
Absolutely.
and that's my point.
absolutely, and they don't even have to watch the meeting, they can just look at the agenda, and it is linked in there.
Correct.
Okay, so,
Okay.
so please peruse it with that in mind. Probably the only thing, and you'll notice this in section 3, the kinds of things that we can prohibit are things that, like, look at it, uses that are likely to cause a material and substantial disruption to school operation. That's that thing about if somebody breaks something, it interferes with our operational capabilities. Political campaign events by someone running for office is one thing that we can bar from coming in here. use that could damage special equipment, and finally, any other use prohibited by law. Use where alcoholic beverages are sold, events at which fees are charged for profit. So, at no point in here do we get to say, and if we don't like you guys, we won't rent this to you. We can't do that. Legally, we cannot do that.
This is cool.
Okay, and it's not only a school, it's a public building. Okay, so that's the heart of the policy. Where it diverges from what the VSBA said we should have is that Schedule A. So this is the mechanism we use to make all this happen. So I've already mentioned the 4 places that the community is allowed to use, but even if they are allowed to use that, they are going to have a contract for that use or a memorandum of understanding, which includes the following things. Any usage contract or memorandum must contain the following clauses. So it's specifying the day and time, specifying who's going to be the MOD, which is supposed to be a person that is employed by the Career Center, was my understanding. Custodial fees, energy usage fees, and proof of liability insurance that must be provided prior to the use of the designated lab space at the Career Center. Okay, superintendent, and this is something that we spent some time going back and forth on. Superintendent shall set a fee schedule based on the use of contract and group designation and the list below. And we broke them down into groups and said that this group will have preference over these other groups in terms of the fees that we charge. This is not giving a listed order of who will let use the building. This just says that if you are a for-profit organization, you should expect to pay more than a student group. Is the thinking behind this. We could have set that, and we could have said, these are the fees that you will charge for Group A, Group B, or Group 1, 2, and 3, but what we said was, we as a policy committee do not feel comfortable doing that. We don't have an intimate enough knowledge of either the building operations or the equipment that's involved, and the prices that you might have for a manager on duty or custodial fees. So it seemed like this should be a procedure rather than a policy decision. We're saying that set a fee schedule, the administration will set a fee schedule, and they've been charged to do that, but we will not tell them what that is. Okay?
Steve, when was the last time this was revised, this policy?
It was 2023, I think, October.
Well,
October 3rd, 2023 is what?
yeah,
Thank you.
is what was on the, is what is in the
So the
policy
label.
database.
Thank you.
But this revision by VSBA came out last year, and it was big. I mean, it was really
Right.
big.
So, I guess my question is, fee-wise, is that something we've charged in the past? Is this something new?
Nicole, maybe you can speak to this, but I don't know that there ever was a fee schedule for.
Not, right, we don't have a current fee schedule, but what we do is we charge them for our costs. So they get charged for the manager on duty to get paid, and they get charged for the custodial to get paid. And if it's a time when the building wouldn't otherwise be open, and we either have to heat it or cool it, then we figure out a charge for that. So we do charge, but there's not a schedule per se. It's more of an hourly rate.
Gotcha. Mike?
And is that fee schedule, is that separate for nonprofit students and for-profit business?
Yes.
To date, it has not been. It's just.
Whatever our cost
So,
is, we pass.
I would just say that if we can make money on it, like at the church, we do that all the time. It just makes sense to have for-profit organization. Like, this is a great facility. Like, if they were gonna try to rent something like a hotel or something, it would be expensive. So it seems to me that we should put some kind of fee on that that makes sense to you.
So at this point, the
Board has given, if the board chooses to move forward with this policy, what you're doing is saying that you write the policy and you are tasking the administration with coming up with the fee schedule. So what would happen in the future, should this policy be approved, is that the administration will later come to you and show you the procedure which we had created. But the procedure is not in the board's purview, only the policy.
Yep, fair, thank you.
Right, just to
Yeah.
add, a lot of these models did have fees in them, and we looked at a lot of different schools, even career centers. They did have fees, and they had clearly delineated the groups, and we kind of watered it down, made it into something more
Let them
generalized.
decide.
Agreed 100%, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Before you said, were we charging fees? It was done a little bit loosey-goosey, and
Right.
I don't remember how many people were on the board that walked in to find a student using one of our most sophisticated machines in one of our most expensive labs and saying, what's this guy doing here? And the answer was, I snuck in through the back because he said I could use this anytime I wanted. And so, we're trying to cover ourselves here, both in terms of liability and agreement on any group that wants to come in, no matter who they represent or whatever part of the community that thinks they own this building they may perceive themselves to be. You have to do these things. Yeah, so it's not just the money that we're talking about here, it's the use of the facilities and the understanding that we own this building. We are responsible for making sure that our students take priority over any public use that could harm that educational mission.
So this is the first look. How many days do we have to wait before we could?
You have to wait 10 days.
Mhm.
I know that it is a common, it's still, most people's practice to say 1 day, or first read, second read, because meetings are a month apart.
Right.
But the statute, I believe, is actually 10 days. The public has to have seen it for 10 days. So if we
Before you
meet
approve it.
this Monday or this Thursday, and then we meet next Thursday, that's not enough time. So it's 10 days, but we're not gonna run afoul of that. If the board does decide to make substantive changes to this, then the clock resets. But if we don't, other than these few editorial, basically wordsmithing things, we're okay with that. We can do that. But we can't make substantive changes to the policy and have a vote in January.
So on that note, I'm going to move it along.
Okay.
Cancellation of the January 16th board meeting. Obviously, in regards to the agenda, if we think that that's something that we have to have, or can the agenda increase on the 9th? Nicole, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, this is totally up to the board. If we would like to
Not have two separate meetings in the month of January, we could certainly add some business items to the January 9th meeting, or we could maintain it as two separate meetings and just have just the budget vote on the 9th and then the regular board meeting on the 16th. It doesn't matter to the staff or I, it's a board call at this point.
Questions, comments, feelings? Steve?
If we combine it into the January 9th, we're already over 2 hours right now. It will probably be a meeting of that size. So budget is,
I think we had pretty healthy discussion today, myself.
yeah.
But anyway,
And if we're going with what was,
do people want two meetings? I guess that's my question.
I prefer to consolidate them if possible.
Thank you.
I would
Straw poll? Same?
Consolidate.
consolidate on the 9th.
So then do we need a motion on that one?
So
then?
we need a motion to the cancellation of the January 16th meeting.
So I move that we cancel the January 16th meeting and limit it to just the January 9th meeting at 5 p.m. to discuss the budget and other meeting agenda items.
The second?
Second.
You get a crowd on the,
In the discussion section, then we come to the question of, is January 9th now a special board meeting, or does it become just a regular board meeting? How should it be warned, as a special meeting or as our regular business meeting?
I believe it will just be warned as a change in
Meeting date to the 9th.
right,
Okay.
okay.
And then you're the expert on this. Can you check me? I will check.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Third item, change policy committee meeting to 4:30. What day of the week is that?
If I may address this as well. We meet on the second Thursday.
Of the month.
And that conflicts with one of our, a standing commitment by one of our committee members.
Okay.
Who asked if we could push that back a half an hour so that they could attend. We were all fine with that, but it was pointed out to us that this has been warned, that the
right.
time has been warned, and therefore it would take board action to be able to change a policy, or to
A
change
recurring
any
time.
committee recurring time. So that's what we're coming before you today.
Okay,
to
so we
say-
need a motion to do that? Somebody willing to step up and do that?
I move that we allow the policy committee to change their meeting time from 4 o'clock to 4:30.
The second Thursday of the month. Is that
That would be
correct?
the 9th.
Sorry.
In January, won't that be the 9th?
It will be,
Mhm.
which is kind of
Well,
an
we
issue
just
Yeah.
for
rearranged that
that particular
That's right.
meeting.
at 5.
So that's the 9th.
Yeah.
So I think we talked about it, that we probably still meet at 4 o'clock
Yes.
on the
On the
9th,
9th,
and then moving forward, change to 4:30.
so beginning on
So that would,
February.
it wouldn't,
In
it
February.
wouldn't, this wouldn't
Beginning
action,
February.
would not occur till February.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Could I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Okay, Dan seconded it. Thank you. Linda, you okay with the way it's written? Thank you. All those in favor of the change?
All right.
Aye.
Anybody dissenting votes? None. Motion carries. Thank you, Linda. So approval of the Norms and Goals Committee charge. Christine's going to talk about that.
Yes, hopefully you got a chance to read the draft charge that is linked there. But we need all of you to approve our charge so we can continue to do our committee work. We've had 2 meetings so far, so, yeah. Do you want me to read the charge, or?
Sure. I think,
Okay.
as a motion, actually, or is
This
this
is
a first, how do we do this? First reading, or?
Well, I know you guys voted in the committee, but then we didn't, then no charge was voted on.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead.
so I guess I would make a motion for, the board to accept the Norms and Goals Committee charge, which reads, the Norms and Goals Committee will discuss and establish protocols centered around board norms and board goals, and present norms and goals to the entire board for approval. So
Need a second?
very wordy.
So Mike is second that, Linda? All right. Any questions? And again, we've had another meeting and we're ready to roll.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We actually created those
Today?
board ground rules today that we'll share with you at the next board meeting.
All right, so I need a vote on that motion. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed to that charge? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, Linda. Report, superintendent, and the business manager. Do you want to go ahead, Nicole? I mean, you put your weekly report in writing.
Right, I just wanted to,
Highlight some really great news for us. We've had 2 PAC babies born. So we had baby Goodwin Goody Warren Cantrick born on December 1st. Nick Cantrick and his wife welcomed Goody. And baby Henry Eddard Vos, who was born on December 6th. And that's the baby of our new welding instructor, Dylan Vos, and his wife. So it's been a fun month at PAC.
Thank you, Nicole. And please feel better. Your coughing subsided for the moment, or your mic's off. I'm not sure which. But did you guys want to add anything else to the business? I mean, you gave kind of a rundown when we.
Yeah, the big topic was the budget. Other business that we're working on, it's open enrollment season and tax season, and Dave and I are pretty busy just keeping the ship running. And
That was the next
Yeah.
question I had.
yeah, so we met with the auditors a few weeks ago, and we've scheduled a time to reconnect in January.
Okay.
So we'll be sending them a bunch of preliminary documentation.
Good.
We're looking to re-engage a consultant who's helped us in the past, just to get caught up, and that's a big project that will be starting soon.
Any questions for Austin regarding that? Judd?
I actually don't have a question for Austin. I just forgot to put on something for negotiations there. I was just gonna say we're So I'll let people.
That's, yeah, go ahead.
So we're not having an executive session because we haven't met yet.
Correct, and that's what I was just gonna say, was
Yeah.
we keep trying to get together to have a meeting, and it's gotten pushed out into January, because obviously, right now, things are extremely busy, and Nicole is sick, so we're now pushing our meeting out into January, early January.
All right. Anything else? So we have a public comment person who has come to visit us, and I'm sure he would like to finish this conversation. You have the floor, sir.
Oh,
Yes, 3 minutes.
sorry.
No.
So,
More than that.
I'm Hugh McLaughlin. In April of 2018, I stopped by and asked for a tour of the makery, because we came in on a Friday and it was on a Thursday, and on Monday I was shown around the building by the registrar, and in return she said, "You will become a substitute," for which is a life-changing decision, and I have been a substitute here and then later at the MUHS, and I regularly sub for Carl Crawford and Bill Vanderwerk at Virginia.
Yeah.
I'm here today because of experiences in this next classroom where Kelly Mills, her group in sustainable agriculture, runs one of the most efficient FFA, Future Farmers of America operations, and it's a pipeline to sending people to state officer positions on that. Also, Bill Vanderwerk, who is a graduate of the Hannaford Career Center, has also been at UVM. He was in the dairy science at the minor research at Chazy. So, I mean, we're talking very seriously knowledgeable teachers. My point is the lateral entry in 2003 to become a math teacher in high school is when we go, I've heard that Kelly Mills and her husband are likely to retire at the end of this year. And my comment is, for those two positions, if they were to leave, you want to hire someone who has significant FFA experience, and so it won't be that Aaron Townsend or somebody else will have to. If it is a newer person, I would recommend Bill as a mentor hired to continue the high level that we've had and the experience that those individuals do. This is an ag county, and VOCAG has been very high. So I just wanted to make sure that they were in the budget and things like that, because it's mission critical to Virgins to have Carl Crawford up there who teaches CAD and engineering stuff, and Bill, who does a bunch of small engine repair, welding, and other things like that. I've covered their courses, and I learn something every time there. So thank you for that. My other things can wait until the next meeting, because this has been a long meeting, but I wanted to make, I am seeing it in the budget. I am relieved, okay? But trying to get a brand new person who has just come out of school and doesn't have significant ag experience or previous FFA experience, they're gonna need a mentor. And that's my one point there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to come in and speak with us.
Well, it's
Yeah.
And on such a positive note. Thank you for staying awake during our meeting. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for taking the time to support
Grab
the
a
school.
dessert on your way out.
Yeah, your persistence will be rewarded with dessert.
And seeing nothing else on the agenda, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Thank you. Just seconded, not that we need it, but anyway.